But in-laws can cause a lot of problems in a marriage. We know that. I know that I've done it a few times. I'm sure I have. Oh, I got a little shake yes on that one. But we can cause problems. Here, Ruth is saying to her mother-in-law, I'm going to follow you. I love you. I have a loyalty and a love which is totally connected to you. I'm leaving that which is behind me, and I'm moving to something else. Your God will be my God. I want to be with you. And it's interesting as we look at this, because in chapter 2, there's a lot of thought that Naomi might be a bit older, that she couldn't go out and necessarily work at this point in time in her life, because chapter 2, verses 2 and 3, Ruth is the one that goes out. Now Ruth the Moabitess, once they get into Bethlehem, says to Naomi, let me go to the fields, pick up whatever grain is left behind, in whose eyes I find favor. And Naomi said, go ahead, my daughter. So she went out and began to glean in the fields behind the harvesters. Foresters? How did I get foresters out of that? Harvesters. Oh. And as it turned out, she found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Nehemiah's I'm getting these words mixed up. The clan of Naomi's husband. The welfare system of the day. We have a welfare system today. Some of you maybe have been on it. I think it's needed at times. We have quite a large welfare system. Their welfare system was pretty basic. You didn't work, you didn't eat. But if you were a landowner, if you were a vineyard owner, when it was harvest time, you did not harvest everything. You would have your workers, or you yourself would cut the corners. You would leave grapes on the vineyards, on the vines. Why? Because the welfare system that God had set up in the Old Testament says that if you are in need and in destitute, you go out and you work yourself to get that grain, to get those grapes, to get that food, which people of wealth have left for you to go get. You all follow me with that? I think it's an awesome system. Ruth understands this system. Naomi understands this system. Ruth says, if we're gonna eat, I gotta go work. People aren't going to just give us stuff. I can't just go down and get the Wicca card or all the other things that we have. I need to go to work. Ruth has a resolve to work for herself and for her mother-in-law. Right. What? Oh, okay. I am all off today. I'm sorry. But you all know what I mean. Okay, good. That's my mantra sometimes. You all following me? You know what I mean? So Ruth is going out to work. But it's interesting because she ends up working in the field of Boaz. Boaz is part of the family, her family. Part of her family. This is totally amazing to me. So what we have here then in chapter 2, verse 12. Chapter 2, verse 12. Boaz comes to Ruth, and Boaz says, may God richly reward you. May the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Boaz is blessing Ruth. Boaz is saying, may God place you underneath his wings of protection. What does Jesus say in the New Testament as he's on his way to Jerusalem before his crucifixion? He says, how often, O Jerusalem, I wanted to place you underneath my wings like a chicken places her brood under her wings for protection. Boaz is saying to Ruth, may God bless you and protect you. But there is so much more here. This is so cool. So amazing. So Ruth spends a lot of time gleaning in the field. For the next 2 months, Ruth works in Boaz's fields. Naomi is scheming. mother-in-law is scheming. Because you see, there is what at this time was called a kinsman redeemer. The Hebrew word is the goel. Kinsman redeemer. A kinsman redeemer was the closest relative to the woman, or could be for some other things. We'll look at that. But who would take the place of the husband who had died. Kinsman redeemer would take the place of the husband who had died. Some of you may recall, if you were here a couple months ago, we talked about one of the questions that the religious leaders asked Jesus. And they said, Jesus, if a man dies, marries to a woman, and the man dies, and he has 6 other brothers, and all of them marry the woman, who is she married to in heaven? Well, we get caught on the idea that there's no marriage in heaven. That's what Jesus is. But what the Jewish people are alluding to right there is the kinsman redeemer idea. The fact that if there is a married woman in your family and is married to, for myself, if my brother would have passed away before I was married, I would have been called to marry my sister-in-law, to raise up a family in his name. That's the kinsman redeemer. Kinsman redeemer is called to redeem or buy back. Marry your brother's widow. Oops. Can you jump back there one, please, Kristen? Just go back one slide. Marry your brother's widow, or redeem the family land that was sold. To buy that family land back. To redeem a family individual that is sold. To buy them back. To care for any family member that needs caring for, and to avenge a family member's death. Naomi is scheming. Some of you know this story. I think this is just so amazing. Throughout these 2 months that Ruth has been gleaning and working in Boaz's fields, Naomi is sitting back thinking, how am I going to get Boaz to realize he's the kinsman redeemer for Ruth? So, the harvest is done. 2 months of harvesting is done. The farmers, Boaz, his servants, they're working on doing their gleaning. They're separating the wheat from the chaff. Working 16, 18 hours a day. Getting done working, it's dark. They're eating a little. They have a little bit of wine. They fall down and sleep by their food to protect their food. Naomi says to Ruth, Ruth, do this. I want you to go and see where Boaz is laying down. And when he lays down and goes to sleep, you go and you uncover his feet and you lay down with him with part of his blanket covering you, which was a marriage proposal from the woman to the man. I know, pretty forward, isn't it? I mean, we think today women's lib, if a woman does something like that, it's like pretty forward. Ruth is doing this. She is proposing to Boaz. Boaz wakes up in the middle of the night and says, whoa, whoa. He's a little shocked to find this younger lady at his feet. I mean, I'd be shocked to find somebody at my feet. You weren't expecting it. And he says, well, who are you? Well, you got to remember, throughout this whole 2 months, Boaz has told all of his workers to give Ruth preferential treatment. He's liking her. He's liking this young lady being around and whatnot. Well, he wakes up and he says, who are you? It's dark out. And they don't have electric lights to flip on. She says, I am Ruth. Would you, please, Boaz, spread your wings over me? New International Version says, spread your garment over me. King James, the New King James Version says, spread your wings over me. What did Boaz say to Ruth? May God spread his wings over you. Ruth says to Boaz, will you spread your wings over me? Will you give me protection? Will you give me security? Will you redeem me? Will you buy me back? Will you buy back my mother-in-law's land? Will you raise up a child from me from